The silence before the storm, approx. 770 words. The stars were quiet. 4 years, the Galactic Union had managed to hold peace between its many species. Treaties were signed. Armies were reduced. Trade was strong. And Earth, though a new member, had kept its promise: no aggression, no war, and no threats. Humans stayed calm. They sent scientists, teachers, and diplomats. The galaxy thought Earth had finally settled down, but they were wrong. Deep inside Earth's main defense command, a man named Dan sat watching the stars through a large screen. He was a commander, but lately, he had nothing to command. There had been no war for 10 years. No attacks. Nothing but silence. Dan didn't trust the silence. Anything new from the Union Council? He asked quietly, sipping cold tea. No, sir, replied Myra, the watch officer beside him. Still quiet. They've moved more patrol ships near the border, though. Dan frowned. More patrols? Without warning? That's not peacekeeping. That's preparation. Myra nodded, tapping her screen. And 3 cargo ships from Earth disappeared this week. No message. No wreckage. Dan's fingers tapped the table. They promised us protection. They signed the treaty. They also signed with the Vorak Empire last month, Myra said softly. Dan looked up. The same Vorak who tried to conquer Earth 40 years ago. Yes. Dan stood up. The command room was dim, filled with glowing panels and quiet voices. Outside the windows, Earth floated peacefully below. Beautiful. Calm. But that calm was a mask. They are planning something, he said. I can feel it. For across the galaxy, in a deep chamber lit by fire blue light, the Vorak Emperor sat in a circle of leaders. He was tall, armored, and had burning eyes. The others spoke in hushed voices. It's time, one said. Earth is weak. Their soldiers are sleeping. Their fleet is in dock. They send peacekeepers, not warriors. The Emperor smiled. They have forgotten who they are. Deathworlders or not, they are quiet now. Strike first, strike hard. And so it began. ATO 300 hours Earth time, the first attack came. An Earth outpost near the edge of Union space went dark. Then a second. Then a third. Within an hour, 20 human colonies were hit at once. No warning. No chance to fight back. Dan was still in the command room when the reports flooded in. Screens lit up red. Alarms screamed, we are under attack. Colonies wiped out. Vorak ship spotted, confirmed, they've crossed into our zones. Myra's voice was shaking. They betrayed the treaty. Dan's face turned cold. They shattered peace. Another officer shouted from across the room. Sir, Earth High Command is activating the Fury Protocol. Dan blinked. That hadn't been used in decades. They are calling the Deathworlders. All over Earth, the hidden warriors began to move. They were not diplomats. Not peacekeepers. These were the ones trained for war. For pain. For total destruction. The Deathworlders of Earth, humans born and raised in the harshest parts of the planet, trained to survive anything, trained to destroy anything that threatened their home, from the forests, the deserts, the frozen poles, and the deep black oceans. They came, they wore black armor. Their ships, once hidden in bunkers and mountains, rose into the skies. These were not transport ships. These were warships, old but deadly. Faster. Sharper. Silent, and at their head was the order Dan gave with a quiet voice, peace is over. Let fury rise. The rise of Earth's silent army. The sky over Earth turned black with warships, from hidden hangars buried deep in the mountains, sleek gunships launched into orbit. Massive cruisers, once thought scrapped or retired, powered up their ancient engines. Some hadn't moved in 40 years. Others had never been seen by the galaxy at all. These were Earth's true weapons, quiet, waiting, never used during peace. Now, they moved. The people watching from cities below didn't cheer. They didn't wave flags. They knew what it meant. When the Deathworlders rose, it was not to save, it was to finish what others started. With Fury.at the edge of Earth's orbit, Commander Dan stood on the bridge of the warship Iron Will. It had been sealed for 2 decades. Now it was alive again. Screens glowed. Crew moved fast but silent. The atmosphere was heavy. Myra stood beside him. Her voice was steady now. All 6 Death fleets are in motion. 73 ships, 20,000 troops, full deployment. Dan nodded. And the targets? Vorak bases. Union outposts aiding them. Anyone who joined the betrayal. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he turned to the comms officer. Send the message galaxy-wide. The officer hesitated. The warning. Dan shook his head. The declaration. A few seconds later, a short message echoed across every channel. Earth declares the peace broken. Retaliation begins now. Do not interfere. Simple. Cold. Final. Across the galaxy, Union leaders stared at their screens. Some laughed nervously. They won't dare, one said. Earth is outnumbered. But others went quiet. They had seen the old records, those buried in the archives. The ones that showed what humans were truly capable of, back when they fought for survival on their own planet. Those same humans were now moving again. On a dusty moon called Draxos, a Vorak battalion was celebrating. They had just destroyed an Earth mining station. Fires still burned across the landscape. Smoke filled the air. The Vorak soldiers drank, shouted, and fired into the sky. Then, they heard the sound. A low, humming roar. Not a fleet. Just one ship. It was dark grey. No lights. No banners. No warning. It came in fast, too fast, before the Vorak could react. The ship released a single drop. It slammed into the ground like a meteor. Dust exploded. Silence returned. Then the pod opened. One figure stepped out, tall, armored in black, carrying a long-bladed weapon across his back. No name. No words. He moved like a shadow. Within minutes, the Vorak screams filled the night. The human did not stop. He didn't speak. He didn't spare anyone. By dawn, the base was gone. Burned. Erased. That was just one Deathworlder. There were thousands more. The news spread quickly. Entire enemy fleets vanished in deep space. Earth soldiers didn't waste time. They didn't take prisoners. Every ship that had taken part in the betrayal was marked and hunted. In the Union Council Hall, chaos broke out. They were supposed to be peaceful. We trained them. We gave them technology. You gave them reasons to watch, a voice said quietly. Everyone turned. It was an older alien ambassador, one who had once warned about Earth's patience. You taught humans war, he said. Then begged them for peace. Now, you gave them betrayal. What did you think would happen? The council chamber went silent. Back on Iron Will, Myra stared at the growing red dots on the war map. All targets locked. Death fleets are ready. Dan spoke softly, almost like he was thinking out loud. We never wanted this. We came in peace. But the galaxy shattered it. He looked up. Now it will see what Earth forged in the silence. He raised his hand. All fleets, move. Let fury burn. Engines roared across space. The Death fleets vanished into the black. War had returned, but this time, Earth wasn't coming to talk. They were coming to end it. The first firestorm. The stars above the planet Kirax burned. It had once been a neutral trade hub, a place where different species met to exchange goods, ideas, and culture. Ships from dozens of worlds used to dock there every day. It had schools, markets, and embassies, but now it was full of Vorak warships. They had taken it the same day the peace shattered. The civilians were gone. The buildings were turned into bunkers. The air was filled with scanners, guns, and guard patrols. The Vorak commander stood tall on a tower and watched his fleets around the sky. Let Earth come, he said. We are ready. He had no idea how wrong he was. Far beyond Kirax, the Death fleet moved in silence. Ships didn't send signals. They didn't blink lights or call warnings. They traveled through old hidden lanes, forgotten routes from Earth's first days in space. The center of the fleet was Iron Will. On the bridge, Dan stood with his arms behind his back. Myra updated him. We are 4 minutes from the strike zone. Target, Vorak command base on Kirax. Total enemy force, 119 ships, 6 ground divisions. Dan nodded. And the civilians? None. They cleared out after the invasion. Good. He walked to the main screen. Activate hammer protocol. At once, every Earth ship changed shape. Panels slid open. Cannons moved into position. Engines flared with power. The fleet wasn't just here to win. It was here to send a message. On Kirex, alarms started to scream. One of the Vorak pilots yelled, "Unknown fleet entering orbit." "It's humans." A full formation. The commander barked orders. "Form the wall. Raise shields. Prepare fighters." They scrambled, sending out hundreds of attack drones and fast fighters. Turrets rose from rooftops. The ground lit up with shields and defense lines, and then the first human strike hit. It was not a laser or missile. It was a railshot, a metal rod, fired at near light speed, that tore through 4 Vorak cruisers in a single hit. No explosions. Just pure, brutal force. The Vorak screamed, confused, not ready. Then the real storm began. Earth ships opened fire from orbit, beam weapons, precision missiles, gravity bombs. Each strike was fast, silent, and accurate. One by one, the Vorak ships vanished from the screen. The commander roared, "Counterattack!" But their weapons barely reached. The humans moved too fast, too sharp. Their ships didn't just fight, they hunted. On the ground, black pods rained from the sky. Each pod held a Deathworlder. They landed like comets, cracking concrete, flattening vehicles, shaking the earth. The Vorak soldiers ran to meet them. With blasters and cannons, they never stood a chance. A single Deathworlder was worth 20 soldiers. They were stronger, faster, and far more ruthless. They moved without fear, their armor built from Earth's deadliest alloys. They didn't shout. They didn't talk, they just destroyed. One soldier, tall and covered in ash, ripped through an entire Vorak squad using only a metal spike. Another took down a tank with her bare hands. The air was full of fire, dust, and the sound of panic. Inside the main tower, the Vorak commander screamed into the comms, "Fall back. All troops, retreat. Save the command ship." But it was too late. A Deathworlder climbed the tower. He didn't use the stairs. He used his fists. The walls cracked beneath him as he climbed. The commander saw him coming, dark armor, glowing eyes, blood-stained fists. He aimed his weapon and fired again and again. The human didn't stop. In moments, the tower exploded at the top. The human walked out of the fire, dragging the commander's flag behind him. He looked up. The planet was quiet. Now. No more Vorak signals. No more defense. Kirex was under Earth's control again. Back on Iron Will, Myra gave the final report. All Vorak forces eliminated. 0 human losses. Planet secured. Dan gave a slow nod. Broadcast the image. Across the galaxy, screens lit up with one powerful image, a Deathworlder standing on top of the burning tower, holding the broken Vorak banner in one hand and Earth's flag in the other. Below it, one line of text: "This is what happens when you shatter peace." And for the first time in decades, the galaxy felt fear, not because humans attacked, but because they had finally decided to fight back. The Union's panic. The Union Council chambers had never been this loud. Dozens of leaders shouted across the circular room. Some demanded war. Others begged for peace. A few simply sat in shock, replaying the same video, a lone human standing on a tower, the burning Vorak base behind him, Earth's flag rising in smoke. They destroyed an entire force in one night. They warned us. No, they declared. We broke the treaty. The Union's Grand Speaker, a tall thin alien with blue skin, slammed his staff. The room fell silent. "This is not just about Earth," he said slowly. "This is about the Deathworlders. We thought they were tamed." One counselor laughed nervously. "They were peaceful. For years, they followed every law. And then we let the Vorak attack them," said another counselor. "Don't forget that." The Grand Speaker stared at the large galaxy map on the screen. A red circle marked Kirex. More red markers appeared. Earth's fleets were spreading. "They are not fighting to defend anymore," he said. "They are on the move." The panic returned. In a secret bunker far from the Union chambers, high-ranking military commanders held their own meeting. "They are too fast," said one. Too quiet. We didn't even see them coming. Another rubbed his hands nervously. They're using old tactics, human-style warfare. Not system-approved, not regulated. A third whispered, we have no counter. A long pause filled the room, then one voice said what none wanted to hear, if Earth is at war, we may not survive. Back on Iron Will, the bridge was quiet. Dan stood alone, staring at the glowing map of stars. Myra stepped in. Reports from other Death fleets, all targets hit. Minimal resistance. Dan gave a slow nod. Any response from the Union? Yes. Confused. Divided. Some beg for talks. Some call us terrorists. Dan gave a tired smile. Of course. He turned toward the war table. It showed new target. Options: supply routes, key stations, old shipyards used by the Vorak. Let them call us what they want, he said. We asked for peace. They gave us fire. Now we return it. Myra looked uneasy. And after this? Dan didn't answer. He didn't know, this wasn't the war Earth wanted. It was the war Earth had trained for. Elsewhere, one of the last remaining Vorak generals tried to regroup. He had pulled together what was left of his scattered fleet, 30 warships, 2 dreadnoughts, and several cargo freighters full of stolen weapons. They met in a dark zone near the dead planet Veko. The area was far from trade routes and hidden by cosmic storms. He thought they were safe. He was wrong. A single human ship followed them. It didn't attack. It just waited. The Vorak general ordered all ships to open fire, but before they could aim, the ship jumped forward, too fast for any of their targeting systems. It appeared above their lead cruiser and fired once. A bright flash of light sliced the sky. Silence. All 30 Vorak ships lost power at once. Their engines failed. Lights died. Weapons froze. The human ship moved through the wreckage slowly, scanning each vessel. Then, it vanished, silent, clean, gone in seconds. The Vorak ships drifted helplessly, powerless. Later, a strange message was found carved into the side of one of the freighters. It wasn't in Vorak script. It was written in Earth's language. This is mercy. Next time, there won't be one. The story spread like wildfire. Back on Earth, people watched the news with quiet pride. They had trusted the Union. They had followed the rules. But the moment peace broke, Earth had not begged or cried. It had risen. Old veterans nodded quietly. Young soldiers packed bags. Engineers opened long-forgotten bunkers. Even children now understood, Earth was not just a planet. It was a warning. On Iron Will, Dan stood before the assembled Deathworlders, commanders, pilots, and fighters. All of you were trained for war, but not for conquest, he said. This isn't about taking land. This is about telling the galaxy that we will never kneel again. The room remained still. Dan raised his hand. We are Earth's fury. And we will not stop until every hand raised against us is broken. Cheers didn't follow, only silence and movement. The next wave was ready, and the galaxy would soon learn, when you break peace with Earth, there is no place left to hide. Fortress Drellin falls. The planet Drellin was built to be unbreakable. It floated near the center of Union space, surrounded by 3 moons and protected by massive orbital guns. Fortified walls circled its cities. Shield towers guarded every gate. The Union called it the Iron Core, a place no enemy could ever reach, and now, it was Earth's next target. Commander Dan looked at the display on Iron Will. Drellin was glowing with blue defenses, gun platforms, and hundreds of ships orbiting the planet. Myra stepped closer. They've put everything there. Over 200 warships, heavy weapons, and a full planetary defense grid. Dan nodded. Good. That means they are afraid. They are calling it diplomacy, Myra said. Union Council wants to meet. They are offering talks. Dan turned away from the screen. After they helped the Vorak. After they destroyed our colonies. Myra was quiet. Dan looked back at Drellin. No more talks. That phase is over. He pointed to the map. Begin Shadow Protocol. Myra's eyes widened slightly. You sure? Dan's voice was calm. Let's show the Union what Deathworlders can really do. The Union Council had no idea the attack had already begun. They sat in long meetings, writing peace offers. demanding Earth retreat, planning how to blame the Vorak, but while they talked, Earth moved. First, the satellites around Drellin went blind. One by one, without explosions or alerts, they lost power. Next, the orbital mines vanished, swallowed by invisible drones. Then, the lights over the outer moons flickered and died. By the time Drellin's commanders noticed, it was already too late. In the main control tower on Drellin, alarms blared. We've lost contact with Watchpost Alpha. Moonbase 2 is not responding. Unknown signals approaching fast, too fast. The defense commander screamed, "Bring up the shields. Power up all cannons." But just as the shields rose, something hit the ground, a shockwave, not from above, but from beneath the planet. An underground explosion shattered one of the shield towers. Then another. Then 4 more. Deathworlders had landed before the alarm ever rang. Inside Drellin's core city, heavy footfalls echoed in the streets. Citizens ran for safety as Earth's ground units advanced through smoke and rubble. Black-armored Deathworlders walked through fire like ghosts. Every move was exact. Every shot was silent. One Union officer tried to rally a group of soldiers. "Hold the gate. We can stop them." He didn't finish his sentence. A figure dropped from above, silent, fast, landing in the middle of the squad. In seconds it was over. Above the planet, the Iron Will led the main assault. Dan stood on the bridge, watching his fleet spread like wings. Earth's warships moved in a tight pattern, not charging, but circling. Trapping Union ships opened fire, screaming across the comms. Missiles flew. Lasers lit the dark, but Earth didn't dodge. It struck with railguns, ion beams, and shock torpedoes. The human fleet tore through the Union line. The sound was distant, almost quiet, like thunder in space. One by one, Union ships blinked out, destroyed, or simply turned off, their systems erased by silent codeworms sent in advance. The Union commander shouted over the wideband comms. "We surrender. Stop. We surrender." Dan didn't answer. Instead, he gave one order: lock weapons. Aim at the command tower. Fire. From orbit, a single beam shot down like a spear of sunlight. It cut through the clouds, through steel, through the core of Drellin's capital, and just like that, the strongest Union fortress fell. Back on Iron Will, Myra looked at the reports. Fortress Drellin secured. Minimal resistance left. Union fleet destroyed or scattered. Dan nodded. His voice was steady. "Send a message to the Union Council." She tapped a few buttons. "Ready." Dan spoke clearly. "You built your walls high. You filled your skies with guns. But you forgot who we are. We are from Earth. And when peace is shattered, we do not ask. We do not beg. We rise." The message went viral within hours. Across the galaxy, people watched it again and again. Some cheered. Some cried. Some simply stared, and deep in the Union Council chambers, no one spoke. They all knew Fortress Drellin was never supposed to fall, but Earth never followed their rules. The final line is drawn. The fall of Drellin shook the galaxy. For the first time, the Union lost a core world. Their strongest fleet was destroyed. Their most guarded city had fallen in a single night. And the Deathworlders didn't stay behind to rule it, they just left. That was what scared the galaxy most. Earth wasn't trying to conquer, Earth was proving a point. In the far sectors, some powers reacted with rage. The Surel Confederacy, longtime rivals of Earth, called for war. "They are barbarians," shouted their High Chancellor. "They must be stopped before they erase everything we've built." They sent their fleets forward, 3 full armadas, with heavy dreadnoughts and elite mercenaries, but before they reached Union space, they found something waiting in the void. Just one ship. An old Earth battleship, nearly silent. No lights. No call, the Surel commander laughed. "Just one. Fire everything." They launched all weapons and watched in silence as every missile stopped mid-flight. The Earth ship didn't fire. It simply transmitted a recorded message: "We are not at war with you. Turn back. Or we will be." The Surel fleets hesitated, then they turned around. Not a single shot was exchanged. Earth's reputation had become stronger than its weapons. In other parts of the galaxy, smaller worlds began to surrender. Without being asked, they sent messages to Earth's high command. "We had no part in the betrayal. Please allow peaceful contact. We respect Earth's strength. We do not wish to be enemies." Dan read the messages in silence on iron will. Myra stood beside him. They are afraid, she said. They should be, Dan replied. But not because we want power. They should be afraid because they woke something that cannot be stopped. Myra tilted her head. And what's that? Dan looked out at the stars. Earth's memory. Meanwhile, the Union Council broke apart. Some members resigned. Others fled. A few simply vanished. Only a few voices remained in the Great Hall, and they were no longer proud. We need to face them, said one. Not with weapons. With truth. Do you think Earth will forgive us? A long silence followed. No, said a quiet voice. But maybe they'll stop if we admit what we did. On Earth, in a Black Mountain fortress, the original Deathworlder leaders gathered around a stone table. They were not politicians, they were survivors, each born in the harshest environments on Earth. The jungle born. The desert raised. The ice walkers. The underground dwellers, and each had sent troops to the stars. Now, they waited for Dan's call. When the screen lit up, Dan didn't waste time. The galaxy wants a deal, he said. They are ready to admit the truth. Do we trust them? Asked a woman with sharp eyes. No, Dan said simply. But we don't need to. We've shown them what happens when peace is betrayed. The others nodded. Then what do we do now? Another asked. Dan gave the answer they already knew. We go to the Council homeworld. We end this, face to face. And the galaxy watches every word. Within days, the skies over the Union's capital darkened. Earth's flagship, the Iron Will, entered orbit, followed by 5 support ships. No weapons fired. No demands made. They came peacefully, but the threat was clear. Dan, dressed in dark armor with no medals, stepped into the council chamber. Myra followed him. The room was nearly empty now. Only a handful of leaders remained. Point 1. Old Ambassador stood up, shaking slightly. You could have burned us all. Why didn't you? Dan's voice was cold and clear. Because Earth remembers. He stepped forward. You welcomed us when it suited you. You feared us when it didn't. You let the Vorak destroy our colonies. You called it peace. He pointed at the council flag. You shattered peace. We answered with fury. The ambassador lowered his head. So what happens now? Dan looked around. The room was filled with quiet fear. Then he spoke the final line. Now you rebuild. And this time, when Earth speaks, you listen. That speech was broadcast to every world in the Union. It was short. Clear. Final, and just like that, the war ended, not with a treaty, not with cheers, but with silence and respect. When peace rose again, the galaxy had changed. The war was over. The attacks had stopped. The Vorak Empire collapsed within weeks, its leaders either captured or hunted. The Union Council was rebuilt, smaller now, quieter. No longer the center of control, but most of all, the name Earth was no longer spoken with confusion. It was spoken with respect. Or fear. On the quiet side of Earth, where green forests touched cold rivers, a new monument stood tall. It was not a statue of victory. It was a reminder. A simple black wall, carved with the names of the fallen. Every lost colony, every destroyed outpost, every family caught in the fires of betrayal. At the top, one line was etched deep. They shattered peace. We did not. Visitors came from many worlds. Some to learn. Some to apologize. Some just to see the home of the Deathworlders. They expected angry soldiers. They found farmers, builders, artists. They expected war. They found balance, because now, Earth had nothing to prove. Myra stood by the river's edge, hands behind her back. She had taken off her armor. The war was done, and so was the silence in her heart. Dan joined her. He had grown thinner. Older. He spoke softly. Union wants to restart talks. Not commands. Real talks. Myra raised an eyebrow. You believe them this time? Dan shrugged. Doesn't matter. They believe us now. They stood for a long moment, watching the tree sway. No alarms. No orders. Just wind. Across the galaxy, changes took root. The Sorel Confederacy, once enemies of Earth, signed a new pact. Not forced. Not begged. But with open hands. Their ships were no longer aimed at Earth, they were stationed side by side in joint patrols, the smaller worlds that had once feared being crushed. Now they were protected by humans. Deathworlders who once trained only to fight now taught others how to survive. Not with fear, but with strength. In the dark corners of space, piracy dropped. Border raids stopped. Why? Because the Deathworlders still watched. They didn't rule, they didn't speak often, but they were there, and that was enough. Back on Earth, the original Deathworlder command centers went quiet again. Ships returned to docks. Armor was cleaned and stored. Some thought Earth would stay ready for another war, but instead, Earth began building something else: new hospitals, new stations, new embassies, and most important, new bridges. For the first time, Earth sent explorers, not just soldiers. Deathworlders traveled to peaceful worlds, not to conquer, but to help, to train, to listen, to warn when needed, because they had learned the lesson: peace isn't the absence of war. Peace is the choice not to strike first. But when others shatter it, you strike back. Once. Hard. And finally. Years passed. Children in alien schools learned about the Great Silence, the years when Earth stayed quiet. They also learned what happened when peace was broken, but they didn't fear humans the way their elders once did. They admired them, because humans didn't rise in anger, they rose in defense, and when they stood, they didn't kneel again. In the final council recording room, a historian, old, bent, and kind, was asked one day by a young alien student, why didn't Earth take over everything after they won? The historian smiled gently. Because they didn't want to rule stars. They only wanted to protect home and remind the galaxy, even peace has a guardian. And that guardian was forged on a death world. Asterisk.